Matty, hello Matty, said, "Hey Dan, I always wondered how you can make the sign of the Aquila. Could you show us?" Yes, you could. It's like that. See? Eagle, two heads across the breast. There you go. Boom also says, "Just finished the Sabbath Worlds anthology, which was fethin' great." Yes, it was. Was wondering if we'll ever see Milo and the Saint ever again. And yes, we will. I don't write characters out of the Gaunt Ghost series without some notion that unless they're dead obviously, that they will come back at some point, and that's too big a dangling thread not to touch upon. So I can't promise where or when or how, but they will come back. And a mindbender I haven't been able to shake. How many actual Tanith are left in the first and only? Yeah, four and a dog. I don't know. In my head there's always the figure of 1500, which is the figure that they've been reduced to for about 6 books now, and it gets whittled away, and with the influx of the Belladon and the Vergasta and other things that are happening in the new book, it's very difficult. I've just been thinking a bit more about John's question there, and I wonder whether that, although there are more at the moment, I wonder whether we'll eventually get whittled down to the last 300 Tanith. That will be the very significant, historically significant number, 300, don't you think? So they'll be able to run around and kick blood pack people down holes in grounds and shout, "This is Tanith!" which would be quite good. Anonymous said, reading Blood Pact at the moment, will the ghosts ever meet Warmaster Makaroth, and is the victory arc the last arc? No, it's not. The victory is the 4th arc. It's definitely not the end, although it's a pretty momentous arc in many respects. And I think there is every chance that the ghosts will meet Makaroth sooner or later, or that Makaroth will have a role in the story that puts him essentially on camera. But it might be an on-camera role like the Emperor in the Horus Heresy that we were talking about earlier on, where he's such a big character. He sort of is there in the background, and we're down in the crowd cheering for it or whatever. But we shall see. But there are more Gaunt books after the victory. I don't know how many yet. I'm mapped out to the end of the victory, and I know that there's at least 1 or 2 more books worth of story that need to happen before I would say the series was ever finished. But it may well be by the time I've got there's so many other threads that need to be continued. There's another full arc. I don't know. We're good for another 5 years. Let's put it that way. Anonymous asks some information about Salvation Reach. Salvation Reach is the next Gaunt's Ghost series book. It is the sequel to Blood Pact. It is the second of the 4 books in the arc called The Victory. It gets them back into the war zone. It introduces, it brings some beloved characters who haven't had much to do for a couple of books into the foreground again. It really brings into the foreground some secondary characters who we haven't had much of. It's a lot of internal intrigue and rivalry amongst the Ghost characters. There's also some very interesting new characters in it as well, and it features. At last, I think the ghosts are being used to their strengths. They're being used for their abilities as an elite and dedicated force of specialists for the first time, which is nice to have them finally recognised. And what legions of Chaos Space Marines serve under an Aquinas Sec? Is he a simple human? I don't know yet. Many do, I should think, and including some that you haven't heard of yet. And of course, he's not a simple human. He's a chaos lord. He's a whatever he was originally. He has been seriously mutated by the powers that he worships. So, be interesting when we do finally meet him, at whatever point that is. Vic, how about an obvious question like, what's the setting for the next Gaunt's Ghost book, and when can we expect to see it? Well, yes. The next Gaunt's Ghost book, which is underway now, is, as I mentioned earlier, it's called Salvation's Reach. The setting is, I don't want to give too much of it away, but one of the things about it is some of it is going to be shipboard combat. I thought that'd make a change. So essentially, Marine in the real world sense of Marine, as in troops who are based aboard ships, but it's not maritime, you understand, it's spaceships. So boarding actions and all sorts of other fun stuff like that. If the book has got inspiration from anywhere at all, it's the old school inspiration of good old traditional Space Hulk. That is to say, creeping around semi-ruined spaceships, blowing the crap out of things. Also, as a teaser, the snipers get a big role in Salvation's Reach in a very fun way. And Captain Dow gets ripped limb from limb by Tyrannid. Oh no, just kidding, Alex. Soren says, I hope you're fine. I am fine, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions about the Ghost universe. What does Urlok Gower look like? Is there any artwork about him? No, there isn't. There's no artwork of him so far. As far as I know, Gower hasn't been described in person yet. We may meet him at some point. Which is your follow-up question. Will he ever appear in a Ghost novel? Quite possibly. Probably in the way that Makarov might. You know, big distant figure. Any chance to see him at Venner again? There's always a chance to see him at Venner again. Soren then asked 2 more questions. Have you ever regretted killing a character? Which one do you miss personally? Most. I personally mourn Fagor the most, he says. Regret killing a character? No, I don't regret it in terms of story points. Sometimes it feels tragic to kill a character. I mean, absolutely get very attached to them. So killing off somebody, and I won't mention anybody by name for spoiler reasons, but killing off somebody is not an easy thing to do. What does your work area look like? Like this. Look. Ooh. Ah. Pretty much like that, with stuff. The scissors. I don't run with those. Zalax asks, what are the differences between the original lost version of Honor Guard and the published version? Are they drastically different? Can you remember any of the major changes that took place? Well, the obvious change is that Elijah Koo wasn't in the original version. So that whole storyline, which then became so significant to the following storylines, was a spontaneous invention in rewriting Honor Guard, which I lost the stories. I lost the book about 2/3 of the way and I had to rewrite it from scratch, from memory, in about a month. And all these new bits and pieces, the major one being Elijah Koo, just appeared out of nowhere. And I just thought, I haven't got time to edit them out, I'm just going with it. And they added into it, and that became such a considerable part of what happened after that. Jack said, hi, I'm currently rereading the Battle of Vervenheim, and I was wondering if there's any particular reason why the ships in orbit aren't using their orbital armaments. Okay, the in-story reason is because although there was vast destruction was going on, it was more important to secure a land victory and try and preserve as much of the infrastructure of Vervenheim and its surrounding area, which was industrially vital, than it was just to simply nuke it from orbit and pick the pieces out. That's a simple reason. They didn't essentially want to sacrifice it like that. However, and I don't think they had the orbital firepower they really needed. They had quite a lot of firepower, but not quite enough. The outer super textual reason is that would have made the book terribly boring, because we wouldn't have been able to have an infantry war. Because if any science fiction story where you've got space travel with huge battleships that can zap things, all the stories would be about that. Warfare will be all about that. So you have to sort of construct things so that you get to play around with the things you want to do. Jordan Bladen, Blood Pact, part of your massively popular Gaunt Ghost series, appeared to break from your normal approach when combating the ghosts. I was wondering, at this point in time, what does Gaunt stand for? It was meant to be a change of pace. It was meant to be a different type of story. Obviously, they're sort of back at barracks and licking their wounds and stuff like that. So that will go, like I said, back to the war zone in the next book, just so that they're not relentlessly the same thing over and over and over again. Gaunt definitely stands for truth, justice, and the Imperial way, though. He's sort of pretty unwavering in that regard. Greg. Hi, Greg. Am I right in suspecting that when Gaunt dies, it will be at the hand of Rawn? I know they're bosom buddies these days, or as close as they get, but I reckon that Rawn will still be the one to finish him off. I think you're probably absolutely correct. If anyone ever kills Gaunt, it should be Rawn. That is not, however, me saying that's how it's going to happen. Also, he says, can I please have your word that you will not kill Larkin? He suffered quite enough. Let him live out his days peacefully. Or I want Dorden to live forever, please. Okay, absolutely, absolutely. I can promise you that will happen. Kill Larkin and Dorden.